Hey, what's up? This is Topazzle, and welcome to Tempo Element once again. And what I'm gonna go over today is about the Roland D-05. Now, this is another second part. I made a second part for one of my earlier posts for the Korg vocal sample to kind of like go over and correct a little bit of things. And I actually have another one, which is the second part to my Roland D-05 review with this, the iPG-800, which is actually an iPad app that simulates the PG-800, which is a controller that back in the day when Roland had the D50, that you would hook up to your D50 because your D50 didn't have sliders or knobs to make adjustments to the wave parameters and the samples and things like that. So you had to go out and get an extra piece of gear, which was like a controller, and it was the PG-800. I believe that's what it was for the D50. They made several of them. There was several different controllers that you could buy for Roland synthesizers, for the different Roland synthesizers. For the D50, I believe it was the PG-800. I believe so. Oh no, the PG-1000. That's the one. It was a PG-1000 that you would get for the D50. But there's this iPad app, and that's actually called the iPG-800, which is it's a controller it's an iPad app that simulates the controllers, and you can actually use this app for different synthesizers, for different Roland synthesizers. And this app actually works for this, the new Roland D-05. And like I mentioned, I did a review on it, working with the iPG-800. And because it's a little bit tricky of how to hook up your iPad with the app to your D-05. And what I went over is actually hooking up your D-05 to the iPad app and a Midi keyboard, so you can actually play your Midi keyboard, and then you can control your parameters on the iPG-800 app on your iPad. So there was a little trickery of how to hook up the MIDI to that to make all those three pieces of gear work. But one thing I didn't go over though is that you can't just use any type of MIDI controller keyboard. You need a specific type of keyboard, and luckily I had that type of keyboard, and I don't have it anymore, which is kind of crazy because I should have kept it. But the keyboard that I have was a Novation remote. And the Novation Remote keyboard it's a really good keyboard. The older ones, even the newer ones, are really good. But what you need in order to make this work with your iPad app, the iPG-800, the type of MIDI keyboard is that you need a MIDI keyboard that's able to send and receive SysX, the SysX language, or the SysX, which is, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, SYSEX. I think it stands for System Exclusive Messages. So it's a little bit different than, it's not MIDI messages, it's actually SysX messages. And that's what a lot of synthesizers and drum machines, they use that language to dump presets or user presets, or I know Electron, with the machine drum, that's how you transferred samples from your computer to the machine drum UW. It converted it to SysX. So they were SysX samples actually going into the machine drum. So that's the same thing with this. But you need a type of MIDI keyboard that could transmit SysX messages. Now, like I mentioned, I had that keyboard. I didn't have it anymore, and what I picked up, thinking that I was going to be able to use, I actually picked up a key step, an Arturia key step, and it doesn't work with this. I was a little bit disappointed. So I was thinking to myself, like, dang, like I got rid of that keyboard. I was, I should have read up more about it, but they actually explain it in the iPG-800 app. If you look in the info and the instructions, it actually explains it. I think I read over it, and it didn't grasp into my head, and I ended up selling that keyboard. Like I mentioned, I got the key step because I wanted to save space, and the key step, it has a sequencer and an arpeggiator, and it's slimmer design and it's nice. And so I was thinking, I was gonna get a better MIDI keyboard. I could, play with those things with the D-05. But I could do it, but with the D-05, but I can't have the D-05 and the iPG-800 app running on my iPad. I can't have the D-05 connected to the iPad and the key step playing and making adjustments. It doesn't transmit the SysX messages. The key step doesn't. So yeah, that was a bummer. So I ended up selling that keyboard, Novation keyboard. I still have the key step, but so I was thinking, and I was looking around, trying to find I was looking for another remote basically, and then all of a sudden it came to me. I have one of these laying around. This is actually a Roland groove box, an MC groove box. This is the MC307. I had these laying around, and it popped in my head that you can actually dump SysX files with through your into your computer, but you have to use MIDI. But it popped in my head that hey, I think I remember knowing that with the MC Groove box that it could transmit SysX files. So I had one of these laying around, and I hooked everything up, and voila, I was able to play the keyboard on the D-05 while the iPG-800 app was all connected through. So I had everything connected, just like in my last video, talking about the D-05 and the iPG-800. But instead of having that keyboard, that Novation keyboard, which I no longer have, now I can have this hooked up, and I can actually play the keyboard. So whether you have one of these laying around too, like an MC303 or a 505, I'm pretty sure the newer ones, the 808 and the 909, the MCs, I'm sure those work too. But I actually had one of these laying around, and thank goodness I did, because I'm saving some money, not having to go and look for another keyboard. And I'm actually still saving a little bit of space, because this is a little bit smaller than the Novation remote. And yeah, so this actually works. This actually saved me a lot of time and some money too. So it came in handy to have one of these still laying around. So I just wanted to go ahead and point that out. So if you have the D-05 and you want to hook up your iPG-800 app and then also play your keyboard, you have to keep in mind that keyboard has to transmit SysX files or SysX messages, transmit in and out. So you got to keep that in mind. So SysX, SYSEX is system exclusive. I think that's what it stands for. Your MIDI keyboard has to be able to transmit those. And from what I hear online, pretty much the Novation MIDI keyboards, those are pretty much one of the only ones that can do it. The remotes, and I think the Impulse can do it, and I believe some Roland MIDI keyboard controllers can do it too. I think like the A series, and they have a 25 and a 37, and I think they have a 49 and a 60, and those are able to do it too. So those will work. So you also so don't forget that. So if you have a D-05, you want to play the keyboard while the iPG-800 app on your iPad is connected, you won't be able to use any type of keyboard. It has to transmit SysX messages. So that's what this video is about. I hope that's helpful for you guys, so you don't go out and make a dumb mistake like I did by selling my Novation remote. But luckily I had one of these laying around, a Roland MC Groove box, and this actually is able to work. So if if you don't get one of those MIDI keyboards, and maybe you have one of these laying around, a 303, MC303 or whatever, then you can actually use one of these. It'll save you time and money too. So I just wanted to point that out from the last post that I made. So keep that in mind with the D-05 and the iPG-800 app. So this is Topazzle. I'll catch you later.